RAM prices have gotten completely insane. I bought this entire stack of micro PCs for less than half the price it would have cost me if I wanted to put 8 gigs of RAM and a 250 gig SSD in each of these 5 old DDR3 laptops. This isn't even new memory. This is DDR3. Here's the thing though, if I open up one of these micro PCs, there is a 250 gig SSD and underneath it is an 8 gigabyte DDR3 SODIMM memory module. Is this a viable solution to buy RAM and SSDs now? Modern DDR5 has definitely been affected the most. Look at this listing, $1,220. That should be like a pretty decent computer with some RAM in it, right? This is about what I paid for my first desktop computer. No, this is just a 64 gig kit of DDR5 memory. Just the RAM. It doesn't stop there though. Even though I'm looking for the older DDR3 SODIMM modules, even those are like $28 for an 8 gig stick now, whereas last time I bought these things about a year ago, it would have been $13. And it hasn't just affected RAM, it's anything with flash chips on it. Last time I bought SSDs, about a year ago again, I managed to buy 256 gig SSDs for $26 each. Those are up to around like 50 bucks. This is $48, $55, $52. So with current pricing, if I wanted to put RAM and SSDs in all of these old laptops, I'd be looking at about 400 Canadian dollars. Old pricing about a year ago when I last bought this stuff, that would have only been $195. The eBay auction I bid on and won for this stack of micro PCs, I got that for $145. Plus 25 shipping, grand total $170. So not only is this cheaper than the ridiculous current pricing, it is slightly cheaper than it would have been to get hardware new on Amazon back then. Now, this is used hardware we're talking about. I need to find out if these SSDs are any good, if they have life left in them, and if these DDR3 RAM modules even work in other computers. I mean, I assume they would, but you never know with these OEM systems. Let's take a look at what I've actually bought in here. In theory, in addition to the value added by the RAM and SSDs in here, these technically should be fully functional computers. They, however, do not come with the Wi-Fi antenna or the power supply, so good luck plugging these things in. These were made in 2016, shipping with Windows 10. The front's got audio in and out, USB 3, and then the back's got some more USB ports, gigabit Ethernet, HDMI, and DisplayPort. If I look at the one I've taken apart here, we can also see that it uses a SanDisk SSD. Yeah, SanDisk 256 gigabyte. Right over here is our Wi-Fi card, and then underneath this heatsink and fan, there is our 8 gigabyte Samsung branded memory module. I'll have to turn one of these things on and maybe run some benchmarks to figure out how powerful these little computers actually are. It also looks like these were optional with VGA through this plug or serial with this one, and I guess that's what this little blank plate here would be for. There's that memory module we were after, and this looks like it's going to be 8 gigabytes of Samsung DDR3. Let's see if these SSDs and RAM are any good, and then maybe I'll take one of these things, plug it in, set it up, and see if it's actually any good as a computer. What's better than 8 gigs of RAM? I say we go for 16. I'm gonna rob this other Optiplex. Well, this is kind of interesting. The other SSD is also a SanDisk, but this RAM is not Samsung. All right, let's kit out this ThinkPad T430S. I actually have no idea what is currently in here. Okay, these are 4 gigabyte Samsung DIMMs, so this will actually be an upgrade. We'll be going from 8 gigs of RAM to 16, if these work. We'll slide that one in, and we'll get this one in right on top. And then for storage, we can use one of our SanDisk SSDs. Oh, and there was actually nothing in here, so that works out. This way? Ah, yes, that way. Moment of truth, do these parts actually function? Okay, that's a good sign. Who is going to use this PC? Me. Choose privacy settings. I love Microsoft so much. No Cortana. Why did everything just break? I'll plug it in, maybe that'll help. There is our 16 gigabytes of DDR3 memory showing up in Task Manager. very functional. And yes, one DIMM is Samsung and the other DIMM is Micron branded. I don't know why they're different, it doesn't really matter. We're getting functional RAM modules here. Now, the SSDs are a little bit of a different story because they wear as you write data to them. And let's just say this one has seen some hours. More precisely, 59,126 hours, or about 7 years. These computers are only 9 years old, and this SSD has spent 7 entire years of that powered on and running. They really got their use out of these. And then there's the data written, 61 terabytes. These are only 250 gig drives. That is an insane amount of data to write to one of these things. And the health report reflects that. It's showing as 54% health. Now, what this number actually means, I don't really know, but lower is worse. If it gets to 0%, does the SSD just implode on itself? Only one way to find out. We're gonna have to run this another 7 years. High power on hours and ridiculous amounts of data written aside, the performance of this drive is totally fine, reading at 540 megabytes per second. That's not bad. Well, not that bad for a SATA SSD anyway. An NVMe should be way higher than this, but 500 is like the most these things really do. I don't remember what a good SATA SSD should get for these random results, but I know that hard drives get like 1, so this is looking pretty decent. Now I'm kind of interested. Have all of these been on for 7 years, or are some of them maybe a little better than others? I'm gonna put them each into a USB enclosure and read the smart data. Okay, 54% health is our number to beat. Oh yeah, that's a lot better. This has only been on for 4 years. This one's been powered on and off like 200 times more, and the data written is not that different, but a lot less data has been read from it. Next computer, what is in this one? Okay, this is another 7 years running, 60 terabytes written, and 55% health. That's one of the worst ones. This drive. Whoa, this one doesn't even have a wear percentage. It just says good. And it's only been on for 34 days. This thing is like brand new. Can these host read write amounts really be accurate? 60 terabytes has been written and 40 terabytes read to this thing in 800 hours? That seems ridiculous. Anyways, this is the last computer to look at. Oh no. I just completely broke this plastic clip off of the drive mount. That kind of sucks. Last drive, is this gonna be a good one, or is it going to have 100 terabytes written? Let's plug it in. Wow, that's the worst one so far. 44% health. This thing has been on for 7 years, 175 days, with 80 terabytes written and 70 terabytes read. I still don't know if I believe these numbers. Based on that drive that had really low hours and still ridiculous amounts of data written, I don't know that I believe all the numbers Crystal Disk Info is spitting out, but that is a lot of data, if it's accurate. Well, I guess if you buy computers that are 9 years old, you should expect them to have lived through their first life already. Not to say that these things can't live a second life, but there's definitely quite a bit of usage on these drives. I guess deciding if it's a good idea to buy SSDs like this is going to depend a lot on your use case. Probably you don't want to put mission critical stuff on 8-year-old drives that have this many hours on them, but if you're just looking for boot drives for some laptops, or I don't know, storing Steam games, could be a good way to get them a bit cheaper. Well, I guess just buying the SSDs is not going to be cheaper. You have to be at least a little bit interested in some of the other parts of these things. But our RAM has been going solid in this laptop, so the RAM seems good. And in theory, this is a full computer. I should be able to plug this in and see if it works. I'm gonna need a monitor to plug this into, and for $9.99, you too can have a Skit Fratty. S and K are capitalized. How are those ones significant? Skittifrity. Skittifrity. Yeah, there we go. Well, no, it's not capitalized here. Now it's just the S. Did they mess up this or did they mess up that? Ethernet for the computer, HDMI so we can see it, and I've got a power adapter cable for the small Dell to the more common big Dell that people actually have power supplies for. So that goes in here, And then the more common laptop chargers that Dell makes plug in here. Now we just plug in the Skip Fratty, turn it on. Is it not working? Oh, there it is. Yeah, there we go. You'll never achieve video quality like this anywhere other than Skip Fratty branded monitors. There we go. It kind of is like mini little computer with mini little monitor. It's perfect for this setup. And yes, these are indeed fully functional desktop computers. They do work. There is our Intel Core i5-6500T. These have quad-core CPUs at 2.5 gigahertz. Let's see how these compare to other computers. In Cinebench R15, this little computer scores 430 points, which is not amazing, but it's not bad. That's about 170% the CPU performance of, for example, that 2012 ThinkPad I was using a minute ago, and we're almost up to the score that the Core i7-860 from the $10 computer got. This score looks pretty bad if I compare it to modern CPUs that are supposed to be powerful, like a Ryzen 7 5800 XT. Yeah, about 6 times less performance, or a 12900K, almost 8.5 times less performance. This was never meant to be a super high performance computer, but even today, I'm sure it would still hold up for basic stuff like web browsing, or using it as a thin client for remote desktop, or I don't know, a media player. I mean, they're small and they look nice. Especially if you can get them at the price point that I got these ones, there's lots of reasons these could be very appealing computers. I might test them farther in the future, so get subscribed for that. I was also kind of thinking, mini Proxmox cluster. I mean, I've got 5 of them. Maybe we can do something with that. Get subscribed. And yeah, in theory, if you needed a bunch of SSDs and RAM, it could potentially make sense to buy a lot of these things. There's lots of asterisks there. Obviously, laptop memory, old DDR3. You're not gonna find a bunch of these for cheap with DDR5 in them, that's for sure. Overall though, if you can find eBay auctions for lots of computers with SSDs and RAM that are useful to you, why not also get a bunch of cool computers as a bonus, right? Well, aside from the SSDs being very worn, but minor details there. Anyways, thank you for watching, get subscribed, and come back for next week's video. See you later.